Hello and welcome to part 4 of Poor Africa. Always makes me want to cry. So, we are at 1884 to 1885, and what happened in 1884 to 1885, all right? So, up until this point, Africa was a very, let me say, forward place, a stable part of the world. I say Africa as a whole. A lot of people think Africa is a country and stuff. To me, it doesn't matter. Call it a country, call it a continent. It was one harmonious piece of 1,000 beautiful cultures and peoples and 1,000 kingdoms, a land of 1,000 kingdoms. So prior to this time, Africa, it had its development, and everything was going on. On average, there were no genocides, nothing funny, no corruption, nothing strange, no government problems, and no lack of development. We've seen in the earlier parts 1 to 3 how developed Africa was up until this time. What happened in 1885? A guy, may his soul not rest in peace, called Leopold II, King of Berlin, stood up in 1885. This really make my heart bleed when I talk about this. Leopold stood up in 1885 and decided, after studying some little history and thinking of how to make an impact for poor Berlin, one of the poorest European nations, he decided to invite other countries of the world to go and officially colonize Africa. Now, this is a very important part of African history that I believe every African should know. Who Leopold is. This is Leopold's statue in Berlin. This is sad. He is still praised in Berlin for what he did. We'll come to that a little bit later. But King Leopold of Berlin decided and convened a meeting in 1885 where he invited other European countries, and they had the International African Association, and they decided it was time to civilize the aka barbarians of Africa. But as we know, it had nothing to do with civilization. It had everything to do with trying to amass wealth. Berlin was like the poorest European nation, and this was a plan and plot to do what? To be able to amass wealth from Africa. Alright, let me read right here what King Leopold said at that meeting in 1885. He said, "Gentlemen, allow me to thank you warmly for your willingness to be part of this. Besides the satisfaction I have in hearing the discussion of problems and solution which we are interested, where is it? To open to civilization, the only part of our globe where she has not yet penetrated. We are understanding the premise with which the Europeans went out to Africa to officially do what? Colonize. It's different from, slave trades which were in existence and stuff like that. We are talking about going to do what? Change a people's lifestyle. Whereas the purpose behind it was to amass and usurp their wealth. So he says, to open to civilization, the only part of our globe where she has not yet penetrated, to pierce the darkness that envelops entire populations, is, I may venture to say, a crusade worthy of this century of progress, and I'm glad to observe how very favorable public feeling is to this accomplishment. Gentlemen, among those of us who have greatness in Africa, basically, King Leopold, I can't even call him king anymore, Leopold, decided at this time and convened the European countries in 1885 and said, let's go out there and convert these barbarians into. So in parts 1, 2, and 3, you noticed I was describing how development was, and I was showing evidence of development and telling you how they had to always loot the books and burn the libraries and burn down the towns, cancel development entirely, because what they had convened and arranged, and officially they were supposed to go to Africa to do what? Civilize dark people. If they find civilization there, then their action is illegal and it's questionable. So they have to prove that there is no civilization there. Very important. One of the main hallmarks of civilization, and something people always talk about, is how could Africa be civilized if they didn't have writing systems? Like they couldn't write in Africa, right? Now let's show what type of continent Leopold said he was going to bring those dark people out of. All right, darkness. Let's show what kind of civilization they had. Back on NigerianWiki.com, these are two brilliant websites. These some of the websites I look at. These guys did brilliant work putting this together. NigerianWiki.com has an article, African Writing Systems, right? A lot of people, it's so funny, a lot of people from all parts of Africa believe Africans couldn't write, right? That the white man, taught Africans how to write. This article has some very important points. First off, it's rather interesting to note that no alphabet is known to have ever been formed by Europeans. But this documentary is not a contest between Africans and Europeans, not at all. So I'm not even going into that. Everybody knows the Egyptians had their hieroglyphic writing, right? And we've proven part 1 or part 2 that the Egyptians were black Nubians who moved from the south, and there are more pyramids in Sudan than in Egypt. Now, apart from the Egyptians, a lot of people also know the Ethiopians had the Giza script, right? A lot of people know Egyptian script existed. So when people say what's it called, the white man taught Africans how to write, or they were not civilized, well, writing is part of the greatest aspects of civilization, and we are having Egyptian and Giza script, which were in Africa 3000 BC 5 already. But it doesn't stop there. This is amazing. A lot of people don't know this. All right, so here we have the Egyptian, the Ethiopic Giza script. We have Egyptian script, which everybody knows. But go on. In Sudan, we had the Sudanese script. Go further down, you find out this looks like Afan Oromo script. All right, Ethiopia and Kenya, you have the Bassa script. All right, Liberia. Go down further, you have the Vai script of Liberia too. You have Mendes script. All right, you have the Mendes script. These are so many complex scripts, right? Nigeria, Sierra Leone, you have Mendes. Nigeria, you have Nsibidi, right? You keep on going. So there were so many types of script in Africa. It's amazing. This is Bamoun of Cameroon. You have so many types of script that so many people don't know about and are not taught in history class. You have people who wrote books. There are great books that were written at this time. All right, this is one of the Schumann script. This guy wrote a book on government, the Enjoyer Magnus Opus on governing systems. So there were so many scripts that were in Africa, but when the Western man came, what's the problem? We are going, according to Leopold, to civilize barbarians, dark people. They don't know anything, and you find them being able to write and read. The monkeys? Hell no. Burn the books. If you read this Enjoyers Magnus, they burn the library. You burn the books, steal the record. This book is in France right now. Steal the record, burn the library, teach them a new language, teach them English. They had printing presses. This is in Sierra Leone. He had a printing press where he printed the alphabets in this language. He had a printing press. The invention of a self-sustaining, self-governing writing system and bronze cast printing device. This is the way development was tending. You see, now we are from between about 50 years ago to 1885. Development was progressing in Africa, but when Leopold decided to go in, they had to do what? Erase that record. Africans don't remember this. Blacks don't teach their children this history, so people do not know the power there, or where they are coming from, or where they were headed. They were definitely headed competitive with any other civilization in the world, or they even developed at a faster rate than other civilizations, because like they said above, but I'm not contesting, Europeans haven't formed a single alphabet. The Greek alphabet comes from Arabic alphabet, whereas in Africa you had independently parallel alphabets developing, of over 10 different kinds of parallel alphabets systems being developed in Africa. All right, thanks for watching up onto this part. We'll continue in part 5.